Get over here!
You might find it curious how a character from my favorite champions list hasn't come up until this point. I already mentioned how much I love Lux due to her effectiveness as an AP caster, and the fact that she's a bit of a dork. But what I truly find captivating about this charismatic conjurer is her surprising expertise in the art of light magic. She uses light to bind enemies in place, generate prismatic shields, and create radiant flashbangs. With so much versatility, the only thing left to do is just to make a giant laser. Finalis Fulkiln, or Final Spark, takes us back to a simpler time, before ultimates needed their own glossary to understand. There's really not much to explain here. With a twist of her staff, Lux suddenly sends out a massive beam of pure photonic energy. It's long, powerful, and oh so satisfying. Plus, with the right items, the cooldown on this ultimate can get pretty low. That alone opens up a lot of possibilities. With quick casting and good aim, Lux players can pull off a devastating combination using Light Binding, Luminescent Singularity, and then finish off with Final Spark. That's Q, E, and then R for you simpletons out there. Or, with good perception, it's a great ability for finishing off enemies who think they can escape death. Final Spark has become rather infamous for the same reasons. Fighting Lux is always stressful due to her high magic damage and spell range, and just when you think you're in a safe spot, that brief little flash of light suddenly tells you that you should probably nope, too late.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Winning a game of League is great and all, but achieving the fabled pentakill is a rite of passage, and if you can land the killing blow on all 5 opponents consecutively, it might just become a highlight in your life. And if you're really ambitious, you can always try for the mythical hexakill. Should they bring that mode back someday. Several champions in the league have abilities designed to help you accomplish such a goal. Misfortune's Bullet Time, Ilawe's Leap of Faith, and the previously mentioned Death Lotus are notable examples. But if you watched my top 10 Electromancers recently, you probably already know that Kennen has the market cornered on pentakills with Slicing Maelstrom. A lot of what I like about Slicing Maelstrom comes from how well it fits Kennen, both mechanically and in terms of theming. With a thunderous cry, Kennen surrounds himself in a burst of highly concentrated electrical energy for a few seconds. Any enemies caught in the storm will take magic damage every quarter of a second, and will also acquire stacks of Kennen's passive Mark of the Storm. That right there is what makes this ultimate incredibly useful. With Mark of the Storm being triggered to any champion surrounding him, Kennen can easily follow up with Lightning Rush or Electrical Surge, stunning marked opponents and keeping them in the Maelstrom, and all the while there's tons of magic damage going around. This ultimate is where his entire skill set comes full circuit. What really gets me about Slicing Maelstrom though is that feeling of absolute power. Hearing Kennen's passionate cry and the sound of thunder and lightning always gives me an adrenaline rush whenever I use this ability. He is, after all, harnessing energy in its purest and most dangerous form. It's because of that I hear a lot of people basically call him Raid's version of Pikachu. But I like to think he's more of a tiny Kakashi.
Their final moments approach.
Now, pentakills are great and all, but sometimes you need a champion who can isolate a lone target and eliminate them in one fell swoop. Champions like Akali, Talon, and Rengar are especially good at sneaking up on the enemy jungler, or catching the AD carry out of position and remove them from the teamfight equation. Not only does this next champion specialize in this particular talent, his ultimate does the job oh so quickly and oh so painfully. Zed's ultimate is called Deathmark, and never has a name fit an ultimate ability so well. Once Zed has a lock on his target, he disappears and leaves a single shadow clone in his wake. From there, Zed appears next to his target with 2 other clones, allowing him to follow up with auto attacks and his other abilities to take them out. But if his attacks alone didn't kill you, chances are that the Deathmark will. When Zed activates his ability on a target, they are marked for death, and after a brief period of time, that mark will deal a heavy amount of physical damage, plus a percentage of the damage that Zed has already dealt to them when the mark was active. Now you may be asking, doesn't that leave him vulnerable? Well, you remember that shadow clone he left at the beginning? Yeah, Zed can reactivate Deathmark to warp to that clone, allowing him to kill his target while having a viable means of escape should things get dangerous. That's the thing about this ultimate that fascinates me, besides it looking just absolutely badass. There's a certain amount of risk in using Deathmark because it puts Zed dead smack in the middle of enemy territory. If the enemy is vigilant enough, or if Zed marks the wrong target, he's going to have a bad time, or, at the very least, his assassination will end in failure. But, played correctly, Deathmark will ensure that the enemy is... dying? Dying... dead.
None escape their shadow.
But what if you wanted a way to execute your enemy while still managing to get a pentakill? There was no way I was going to deny the Dunkmaster a spot on this list. Darius' Noxian Guillotine is a fascinating ultimate. Like Lux's Final Spark, there's not much to say about this one, yet it still managed to become a meme among the League community. With a huge leap and a gigantic drop of his axe, Darius slams his blade into the opponent, dealing true damage, plus an additional 20% bonus damage for every hemorrhage stack he has placed on his target. It's the perfect way to finish off a weakened opponent, and since it deals true damage, it doesn't matter how tanky they are, that damage is getting through. However, the true magnum opus of Noxian Guillotine is its excessive potential. If Noxian Guillotine is the killing blow, Darius now has 20 seconds to use it again and take out any other weakened enemies that are nearby. And once it hits level 3, the cooldown just resets and the time limit is gone. This not only makes Darius an extremely dangerous opponent, but it also makes him a pentakill monster. Those minions have every right to flee in terror at the sight of that lethal swing. Once he's in the air, there's no hope for you.
Don't turn your back, or expose your neck.
Rampage.
Alright, a lot of you saw this one coming, I'm sure. Caitlyn is still my favorite champion in the game after all this time, and yes, her ultimate still remains to be one of my all-time favorites. Now, some of you may be wondering, why not Curtain Call? It's basically the same thing, but as a skill shot, and it makes you feel more like a sniper. While I agree that Curtain Call is a fascinating ultimate, well, I will openly admit that I'm pretty biased on this one. Top 15 favorite ultimates, remember? Ace in the Hole is a much simpler ultimate when compared to Curtain Call, but there are these subtle little details about it that keeps it in my crosshairs. Ace in the Hole is a long-range lock-on attack. Once Caitlyn has her sights on the target, she will take a couple of seconds to line up her shot before firing a lethal cog to abolish the last of their health. It's highly damaging, and with the right timing and good judgment on the enemy's health, this attack is almost guaranteed to take them out. However, that doesn't mean that the enemy is helpless to Caitlyn's sniping prowess. Once you see that techmaturgical target placed on you, you've got a few seconds to figure out how to save yourself. Perhaps you can heal yourself enough to survive the shot. Maybe you can put yourself in stasis with Zhonya's Hourglass or Bard's Tempered Fate to dodge the attack. Or, more commonly and most epically, your teammate can jump in the line of fire and take the bullet. This is one of those cases where the counterplay aspect of the ultimate is what appeals to me the most. Ace in the Hole is a tactical ultimatum, with that red line of sight and the sound of rolling cogs and shifting pistons letting you know that your life might just be over in a couple of seconds. Playing as Caitlyn offers the same rush, since activating Ace in the Hole at the right time becomes a game of strategy and positioning, two things that snipers always take into account. Find a safe place, lock onto your target, and with precise tactical acumen, your aim will be swift, steady, and your target... silenced.
Boom. Headshot.
As we enter the penultimate place on this play-by-play, I'd like to comment on the fact that I was really happy to see such a variety of ultimates when putting this list together. We've had the team-tearing techniques like Death Lotus and Slicing Maelstrom, challenging checkmates like Grand Challenge and Ace in the Hole, and effective executions like Deathmark and Noxian Guillotine. Now what say we mesh all of those manners into one magnificent, monstrous, malevolent package? Ladies and gentlemen, Requiem. A long while after I made my top 15 favorite champions, I came across the commanding cadaver who calls upon the compassions of the killed and the condemned, Karthus. Since then, he has become one of my new all-time favorites, and Requiem is just a remarkable ability that is revered by teammates and feared by opponents. Once activated, Karthus begins to call upon his most potent dark energy, and after a few seconds will provide a plunge of pure paranormal power for every opponent on this picturesque plane. It doesn't matter where you are. Unless you put yourself in stasis or make yourself untargetable somehow, that ghostly blast will hit you and, if you're low on life, will most likely kill you. With that kind of global presence and high magical potential, Karthus is a dangerous opponent that can finish off any escaping enemy or suddenly turn the tides in a team fight. Be that as it may, you're not totally helpless once Karthus starts singing his Requiem. With those few seconds of time, you can always find ways to save yourself, such as healing or shields. In addition, Karthus needs to concentrate when using this ability, so any form of stun or displacement will interrupt him and put that devastating dirge on its enormously long cooldown. That being said, smart Karthus players will know when it's the right time to start singing their superlative soul-stealing single, and with his passive Death Defied, Karthus can activate this ability even after he himself has been killed. It's formidable, flashy, fantastic, and just damn fun, demonstrating exactly why Karthus is the Death Singer.
Agony, ecstasy, peace. Every person has a beauty all its own.
Centuries upon centuries of history have been lost in Runeterra. As time flows, so does life, and each generation will speak of the past and reshape the future based on the stories told in the present. One family, revered for their services, has long been forgotten, lost to the ages, decayed over time, until it was nothing. Except for one man. One man who not only possesses the will to restore his family's legacy, but also wields the power of the lost and the forgotten. The power of war, pestilence, famine, and death. I can already imagine the look of shock and confusion on my viewers' faces right now, but rest assured this is no joke. Omen of Death, the ultimate ability of Yorick Mori, is my favorite ultimate in League of Legends. For how underwhelming it may seem compared to the likes of Requiem and Final Spark, and while arguments can be made for similar ultimates like Mordekaiser's Children of the Grave, Yorick's Omen of Death probably seems out of place for the #1 spot. But I stand by my opinion, and I'm ready to back it up because I absolutely love this ultimate. Upon activation, Omen of Death will create an undead clone of one of Yorick's allies or himself. This Revenant possesses a portion of the target's health and attack power, and can be commanded manually to do Yorick's bidding. With a semi-powerful ghoul at his disposal, suddenly a lot of options open up for Yorick. He can use this on himself during a duel with an enemy to suddenly stack the odds in his favor. He can command his undead corpse to take tower shots in order to approach a weakened opponent. Or better yet, he can use Omen of Death on the team's AD carry to turn a 5v5 into a 6v5. But while all of that sounds awesome, that's only the half of it. The true power of Omen of Death comes when the mortal coil has been severed. If the champion Yorick targeted with Omen of Death dies while the Revenant clone is still present, it will sacrifice itself in order to give that champion an extra 10 seconds of life. And this is where this ultimate gets scary. If you're fighting an enemy team that has a Yorick, you just might run into a morbid surprise when the enemy champion you just killed springs back to life with the intent to finish what he or she started. While that champion is now living on borrowed time, a lot can happen in 10 seconds, and if they're fast enough, they will likely take you down with them, a vengeance that Yorick is more than happy to provide. That right there is the main reason why this is my favorite ultimate in the game. Not only does Yorick himself have the potential to drag his opponents down to his own grave, he can give that privilege to one of his teammates, and it is one of the most satisfying experiences to watch your ally take full advantage of those 10 precious extra seconds that you granted to them. The Omen of Death is unique, creative, satisfying, threatening, and it is my favorite ultimate ability in League of Legends. I am the Green Scorpion, and if you happen to run into me in Summoner's Rift, know this.
You will remember Yorick Mori.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to another Green Scorpion Countdown. If you'd like to see more of my videos, then hit that like button and subscribe to the Green Scorpion channel where countdowns, reviews, and let's plays are posted every single week. And if you want to keep up with me as a whole, then you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I hope to see you guys there, and until next time, happy gaming.